Thank you, Madam President. 2 weeks ago, the international press commented statements that you made, Mr. President, about the possibility of Portugal turning right towards the IMF, and you interpreted that as an incentive, an encouragement. Now, you, Mr. Barroso, certainly know Portugal best of everybody in the Commission. Let me ask you 3 clear questions and hope for 3 frank answers. First question, what does Portugal gain by turning to the IMF and the Stability Fund as they now exist? Second question, what are the changes that you regard as indispensable to this fund so as to avoid the shameful events in Ireland, alone at prohibitive rates, with a fall in wages, with continued fiscal dumping from large companies? Third and last question, how do you expect us to return to a situation of trust if all the monetary decisions, including the last one from the European Central Bank, are quite clearly designed to be bad for the poorest countries and to undermine growth? Thank you very much, Madam President. There are a number of specific questions about Portugal which I'd like to answer. Is Portugal going to turn to the Stability Fund or not? Well, that's a question for the Portuguese authorities. It's a sovereign question of Portugal. Obviously, what I can say is that the Financial Stability Fund and the use of that fund, and IMF assistance as well, has to be seen as a last resort. Obviously, if a country can avoid using that mechanism, it has to, because the mechanism has costs, these rescue funds, not just reputational costs. So if a country can avoid it, it must do so. But I repeat, that is a decision for the national authorities to take, whether to use the rescue fund or turn to the rescue fund or not, or rather the request for its use. Second, what would I like to see in this fund? Well, it's not a question of what I like, it's a question of politics. We're working actively with the states, particularly the Eurozone states, to ensure that the fund is strengthened in its loan capacity, it has a broader field of activity, and it has as much flexibility as possible. Now, these are very sensitive issues for the markets, which is why it's not a good idea to be announcing intentions that you can't then put into effect. But work is going forward in the Eurozone, and as you know, the Commission is explicitly, for example, in its annual growth report, has explicitly made a proposal for the extension of the fund's field of activity. Is this a policy that can or should be changed for the weaker countries? No, it can't be. That would be totally irresponsible. There are countries with this level of public or private debt if they gave up on their consolidation effort now. If a country has such a high level of debt, then it has to recover the confidence of the markets. Otherwise, the debt becomes unsustainable. Its economic position becomes unsustainable. So we need to help the countries that are in this difficult position. And the way to do that is not to offer them mirages. On the contrary, it's to support the serious efforts that they may be making to rebuild their budgets and restructure their economies. That's the only way that they will recover the trust of the markets. But it's not just the effort of an isolated country. There has to be a joint effort by the Eurozone. And that is what is happening now, with, of course, differentiated efforts from the different participants. But what I can tell you is that everything has been done, everything possible has been done to achieve more ambition. But as you know, the Commission only proposes, but ultimately, particularly when you're talking about strictly national competence and things that are not envisaged in the treaty, like the Stability Fund, Financial Stability Fund, ultimately the decision is for the Member States, particularly those in the Eurozone area.